Welcome back to another veg-inspired video. Today we are making strawberry tiramisu in honor of Strawberry Shortcake Day coming up this weekend. This is going to be a play on the tiramisu recipe from the 30-minute whole food plant-based cookbook. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to slice up these strawberries and get them macerating. So let's get into this recipe. Okay, so what I did was I hulled all the strawberries, and now I'm going to thinly slice them about an eighth of an inch thick. And this is about 1 pound of strawberries. Don't want them too thick because they're going to be a layer in our strawberry tiramisu. Once you have your fresh strawberries cut into thin slices, you're going to add in, again, this is about 1 pound of strawberries. You're going to add in about 2 tablespoons of maple syrup, and you just want to gently stir these strawberries. Now what you're doing is by adding this sugar substitute, date, you could do date sugar, you could do maple sugar, you could do cane sugar, whatever you want. You're going to pull out the juices from the strawberries. You're going to create like this syrupy kind of mixture with your strawberries. It's called macerating, so the strawberries will just sit in this sugary substance, and we'll set them aside for about the 30 minutes that it's going to take for us to prepare the other ingredients. So we're just gonna set those aside. Now, the secret ingredient in our tiramisu is sweetened soaked bread. I know you're probably thinking, that's no tiramisu, that's not ladyfingers. You're right, it's not. But this is a more whole food option. I am using the Ezekiel whole grain breads. They're flourless and they use naturally sprouted whole foods. So it creates more of a whole food option. It's a little heartier than your light ladyfingers, but it does have all of the sweetness and all of the flavor that you might be looking for. So we're gonna prepare these breads by toasting them a little bit. So to prep our bread, we're just gonna gently cut off the crusts. Now again, these breads are stored in the freezer, so it's probably easier to cut the crusts off with a sharp knife like this. Now the cool thing is you can save these crusts and use them for croutons, breadcrumbs. You could toast them right up with this and then make them into breadcrumbs. Anything that you would use these bread edges for. If you feed birds, suppose you could feed the birds with it. It doesn't have to be perfect. You just the crusts are get kind of tough in the recipe, and so this leaves everything to be softer and less crusty, if you know what I mean. So again, I'm just literally cutting the crusts off like you would for, someone who doesn't want a sandwich with crusts. You're just cutting off the crusts. Okay, so they're cut off. I've spread my bread on my baking sheet and I'm gonna lightly toast it. I'm gonna do that by putting it in a cold oven, letting it come to 350, and then flipping it over and toasting it for another like 5 to 8 minutes, depending on your oven. While our bread is toasting, we're gonna make up the liquid that we're gonna soak the bread in. So typically in a tiramisu, the ladyfingers are soaked in a coffee. We're not using coffee. We are using some homemade oat milk. So you can use any oat milk that you want. If you want to give it a coconutty flavor, you could use some coconut milk, whether it's canned or from a jar or from a container. You can use homemade milk, you can use almond, you can use cashews. I'm using oat because that's what we have. This is actually the oat creamer that we make in our almond cow, so it's a little bit thicker, but it'll work. So it's about 1/2 cup. And then we're going to add to that, I'm gonna steal my strawberry spoon, like a heaping tablespoon of maple syrup and a teaspoon of vanilla. So your bread is going to be soaked in this sweetened vanilla maple plant milk. We'll set that aside. And then the next step is to prepare the ingredients for our cream. What's going to replace the mascarpone in this is going to be a sweetened cashew cream. And so we need to get that ready. Okay, the bread is lightly toasted, so let me get that out of the oven. And the reason you're lightly toasting it, it's not toasted, like it's still bread, but you just don't want it to just fall apart when you soak it in the cream. Okay, now we're gonna make our cashew cream. So into our blender is going to go 1 cup of raw cashews, half a cup of water or plant-based milk, or half and half if you have a little bit of water and a little bit of milk, 1/4 of a cup or about 4 or 5 medjool dates that have been pitted, 1 tablespoon of lemon juice, and 1 additional tablespoon of maple syrup. So you want it to be a nice creamy texture. Now we're going to layer our strawberry tiramisu. The first thing we do is we dip a piece of our bread in our cream mixture. So this is the plant-based milk, maple syrup, and vanilla mixture, and we're just going to dip the bread in, the toasted bread, and lay it in our baking dish or casserole dish. Another piece of bread. So in the bread that I'm using, or in the pan that I'm using, 2 of them fit. So that, but not all the way. So I'm gonna split one, I'm gonna cut one. So just, again, this is sweetened soaked plant milk. You're just going to kind of push them into the pan so that they fit. If you're using an 8x8, the way you slice your bread might be a little bit different, but you're just gonna get it in there so it's 1 layer. Then you're going to do about half of the cashew cream. I'm just gonna take it out. And you're literally just spreading the cashew cream over the sweet soaked bread. And it's okay if you don't use exactly half. If you have a little bit more in the next layer, that's okay. We've also made this where we've only done 1 layer, either reducing the amount of cashews or making just a big fat layer of the cashew cream, big thick layer of the cashew cream. Now the difference is I am going to add in some of these strawberries. I'm going to use a slotted spoon, and again I want to stir them. You'll see that there's some liquid starting to come out. It's not as thick as maple syrup, right? Because the strawberries are starting to macerate. So we're just going to spread them in a thin layer. That's why we cut them so thin, so that they didn't take up too much space or create too thick of a bite. So I thought about this recipe and was thinking how fun it would be. So when we tested it, I was like, when can I do this? And then I saw on the calendar that there was National Strawberry Shortcake Day. And I said, oh my gosh, instead of a strawberry shortcake, let's do the strawberry tiramisu. So here we are with our layer of strawberries for our strawberry tiramisu. Now we're only gonna do 1 layer of strawberries. You can certainly serve it with the remaining strawberries. I have another little topping that we're gonna put on. I like to just kind of fill in any of the holes. So now I have my sweet soaked bread, my layer of cashew cream, and a layer of those strawberries. The next thing I'm gonna do is add in another layer of that sweet soaked bread. Depending on the pan that you're using, you may not need 9, you may only need 8 pieces of bread. But what I do now, because the pan starts to get wider at the top, is I cut another piece into smaller segments. And it doesn't really have to be perfect because it's a very forgiving recipe, because really it's about the flavor and the fun. Okay, so now in here we have sweet soaked bread, cashew cream, strawberries, sweet soaked bread. So the last layer that will go on top of our strawberry tiramisu is the rest of the cashew cream. So I'm just going to scoop it out of here. I love my Vitamix for this application, but if you don't have a Vitamix, you can soak your cashews in either warm water for maybe 30 minutes, hottish water, not boiling, or you can soak them overnight, and that will help them get creamier and buzz up in whatever blender or food processor that you have to use. And again, this is a forgiving recipe. I love it when the cashew cream is perfectly creamy and perfectly smooth, but it doesn't have to be, because it's like I said, a very forgiving recipe with the different textures. I like to smooth it out, so I just dip it in a little bit of that leftover sweetened plant milk. Okay, you guys, it's amazing. Look at these layers. I'm so excited. Here's the hardest part. This needs to set for a couple of hours in your freezer. So I will be back shortly with a fully cleaned up kitchen and a taste test. Okay, welcome back. It is time for the taste test. But first I want to tell you a little fun fact. Tiramisu, the actual word tiramisu, it means, or its translation is a little pick-me-up, which I suppose if you're eating a traditional tiramisu with the coffee, it might give you a little caffeine pick-me-up. But I think this strawberry one is going to give us just a little enjoyment pick-me-up. So it's set. The top is a little soft. It's been in the refrigerator for about 3 hours, or I'm sorry, it's been in the freezer for about 3 hours. Now, I think you in a traditional freezer at home where it freezes pretty quick, you probably could let it set for 1.5 to 2 hours and then serve it. After it sets, I just leave it in the refrigerator. I feel like the first cuts are usually the ones that are most challenging, because again, you have to get the first piece out. Once you get that first piece out, you're good. I'm gonna cut this into 9 slices, or 9 pieces. You probably could squeeze out 12. You just want to make sure it's really cut. You do have those strawberries in there that you're cutting through, and then that toasted soaked bread. Just going to go around the edge with a butter knife. Seems like it's coming out really nicely. Let me move these. The first piece is always the hardest. Okay, so you have some nice layers that are set. Now, you could top this a couple of different ways. You could use those macerated strawberries that we did earlier. Look at how much liquid is in them now. There's a whole lot more liquid. But I actually bought some freeze-dried strawberry powder. You could make strawberry powder by buzzing up freeze-dried strawberries in your food processor. I have bought it like this on Amazon. I'll put a link in the description below. I'm not sponsored or anything, but oh my gosh, it smells so good. I thought this would be a cool topping. So what I'm gonna do, this is where you need like that third hand, is I'm gonna get, if this would just, here, let me go like this. There you go. There you go. Freeze-dried strawberry powder. So I'm gonna take just a little scoop. You really only need, I probably don't even need this much for just one thing. And then I'm just gonna put it in my little mesh strainer and sift it over the top. Sift it over the top of my strawberry tiramisu. So now I have this beautiful pink topping. To me, it is a delight. It's such a fun little fresh dessert. You wouldn't even know that it was made with bread. Like, that just looks like cake. So I think it's in good veg-inspired fashion. We really need to give this a taste. The bread is still a little dense. It held its texture, so it didn't get mushy, which is good. That's what we were looking for. The strawberry layer and the strawberry layer and that cashew cream layer really held up nicely. It's so light and fresh for a recipe that is made, you know, typically made with cake, typically made with ladyfingers, typically made with a lot of dairy. This is such a light, fun meal. So we whipped this up for you. I whipped this recipe up for you, a strawberry tiramisu in honor of Strawberry Shortcake Day coming up this weekend. Strawberries are in season in most of the country right now, or they will be. So it's the perfect recipe to make and serve with your fresh strawberries. I would not put the strawberry powder on until you're going to serve it, because it is starting to soak in. And when I first put it on, it was like this bright pink color, and now that it's soaking into the cashew, it's turning into not a bright pink color. So this recipe is so tasty. I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. I'm sure you're surprised by the bread used as the cake. If you are, let me know in the comments down below. If you don't like strawberries, the original tiramisu recipe I can link up here. That one uses coffee, but you could use decaf, you could use Earl Grey tea, you could use matcha. You don't have to use, you know, you could soak the bread in whatever flavors you're looking for. So I hope you love this recipe. Enjoy some fresh strawberries this season. And until next time, eat more plants, live veg inspired, and have a great day. Bye.